Harriet Tubman was born into slavery in Dorchester County, Maryland, somewhere around 1815, 1822, or 1825. We don't really know because slave owners were notorious for forgetting birthdays and anniversaries. Like they couldn't even remember that Kunta Kinte's name wasn't actually Toby, even though he reminded them like all the time. But he eventually changed his name to Geordie LaForge and went on to become a lieutenant in the Space Federation.
Emancipation!
At the age of 6, Harriet was hired out as a nursemaid and was told that every time the baby woke and cried, she would be whipped. She once recounted a story in which she was lashed 5 times before breakfast. Apparently, early America was a lot more like the Saw movies than we remember.
Let's play a little game.
I believe I would have changed my slave name to Sids. Or I would have changed my slave name to Gone with the Wind because getting whipped every time a baby cries sounds like some bullshit. Harriet Tubman also suffered from narcolepsy, seizures, and visions from God all her life after an altercation with an angry slave owner left her with a fractured skull. Harriet Tubman escaped from slavery on September 17, 1849. She said, "There was one of 2 things I had a right to, liberty or death. If I could not have one, I would have the other." She would go back over a dozen times to rescue the rest of her family and other people. She often used to take a pistol with her in case she got into a tight spot or if she needed to silence a baby.
Kill that baby!
At one point, morale was getting low, and one of the slaves that she was with decided that he would rather go back than face the rigors of the journey ahead. Harriet calmly put the pistol to his head and said,
"Say what again? Say what again? I dare you. I double dare you, motherfucker."
Harriet was so good at rescuing people and taking them to freedom that they just started calling her Moses, or the Hamburglar, or the dad from Taken. In 1850, Congress passed the Fugitive Slave Law, which means that slave catchers could come into states that had outlawed slavery in pursuit of escaped slaves, and even arrest anybody that assisted them in not being slaves anymore. I mean, I don't know what else Harriet Tubman has to do. Does she have to boss fight Jefferson Davis while Robert E. Lee sneaks up and tries to steal her soul? Harriet now had to take escaped slaves all the way up into Canada instead of just halfway across the United States. But Harriet was not deterred. And unlike Chuck Norris and all of those missing in action movies, she was never caught, nor did she ever lose a single person.
Flawless victory!
On June 2nd, 1863, Harriet Tubman was recruited for a rescue mission deep into enemy territory along the Combahee River. There, along with the Union Army, they would liberate over 750 people. She is still, to this day in history, the only female civilian to ever lead a U.S. military combat raid. She would go on to live to the ripe old age of 93 and die a free woman. I'm Peter Van Pelt. That's been This Week in History.